Hello, Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Guys, today I'm going to be doing some modifications to my gantry crane. So I purchased this gantry crane, I don't know, it's been several months ago now. Great improvement to my shop. It has really enabled me to do some things and make life a lot easier around here. And honestly, it's probably one of the best investments that I have made in my shop. But I've got a little issue that I'm having to deal with, and every time I need to move the top part of this up and down. It's adjustable. You got a pin in here where you can raise and lower this thing. I think it'll come down to about, I think it's 8 or 9 feet high on the low end, and this one will actually go up to about 20 feet on the high end, all adjustable by these pins. The problem that I've got is when I need to raise and lower it, and while you might think, well, you don't really need to do that often, and in the grand scheme of things, I don't, but I kind of do. So my issue is that when I need to take it to the back part of my shop, which is where my metal planer that I'm restoring is, I've got to go under a door that's about a little under 10 feet tall, and it'll fit underneath it, but I have to drop it all the way down. But then to really be able to use it, I need to raise it back up. And depending if I've had a couple of times, I need to back a trailer in here, unload something off, and I need to get up kind of high. Right now, I mean, it's not nearly 20 feet. It's probably about, I don't know, 12, 14 feet tall, probably about 12 feet high, something like that at the top, and that's good enough. But again, raising it and lowering it, how do you do that? So they have a hook up here that you can put a come-along, get 2 come-alongs, and you can raise and lower them that way. I'm not a big fan of the come-alongs. Come-alongs will hurt you. That's been my experience with them. I've got a chain come-along that works pretty good that instead of the cable, that's the one I use, but they're expensive and really kind of hate to tie them up on the gantry crane. I really don't want to have one and have to go back and forth. So what I've opted to do is I'm going to do a little modification here and put a long ram hydraulic cylinder on each side that I can just pump it up and down. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So this is a cylinder, and this is the exact same cylinder that's like on an engine hoist. It's rated for 8 tons, although we're not going to go anywhere near needing that much capacity. The main thing I wanted was the long reach on it, the long ram. But we're going to build a bracket, a mounting bracket mounted in here on the side. I'm going to build a piece that I can put in the pins up there that the top will connect to, and I can raise it and lower it, and I can pull that piece out and put it in different pins for different adjustments. And that way I can easily raise and lower this thing in the shop. It's going to make life a lot easier, I think. So before we go any further in this project, though, let me just mention a couple of quick things, safety-related things, and just so forth like that. Disclaimers, I guess you'd say. Number one, as soon as I make any modifications to this gantry crane, I'm voiding the warranty and potentially making it unsafe. Now, in the case that I'm doing, I think I'm actually making it stronger because I'm going to be putting some additional bracing on here. But anytime you do any modifications like this on something like a gantry crane that's used for lifting, think about what you're doing. Make sure that what you're doing is not going to interfere with the structural integrity of what you're working on, because that can be catastrophic. We don't want an accident to happen. Second thing, yes, I'm going to put these rams on the side to lift that top up and down, but this is not for lifting things on the gantry crane. We use the chain hoist for that. Yes, I'm putting 8-ton cylinders on each side. So in theory, I would have 14 tons of lifting capacity. The gantry crane is rated for 6,000 pounds, 3 tons. That is it. And again, we're not going to lift a load with these cylinders. The top part up there where the trolley runs that your chain hoist goes on, it will freely slide back and forth. If you raise one side a little bit higher than the other, you get that beam off balance. Your load can shift, go slamming into the side, and again, it's an accident waiting to happen. So just keep that in mind. This is just for adjusting the height. This is not for lifting that I'm doing. I want to make that very clear. If anybody's watching this and makes a similar modification, don't lift with these jacks that we're putting on here. All you're doing is raising and lowering the top of the beam. So first things first, I need to cut some metal to start fabricating this up. I've got a cut list here of everything I need, so I'm just going to go ahead and get all this done before we even get started on anything else. Just do all my cutting at one time. So I need a piece that's 22 inches long. And to do the cutting, I'm going to be using my Morse 14-inch metal devil saw. I absolutely love this saw for cutting metal like this. It is just super easy, super fast. See how easy that was? See how easy that was? No problem at all. And it's cool. I mean, it's just, it doesn't even make any heat. Anyway, I love it. It's a lot more compact for my shop than a bandsaw is. You know, some people like them, some people hate them. I love this one. All right, I need 4 pieces that are 4.5 inches long. Next, I need 1 piece that's 5 inches long. And then I need 2 pieces that are 4 inches long. I should comment that all of this flat stock that I'm cutting, this is 3/8 inch thick, 2 inches wide, and that's what I'm using for everything here. And the last piece I need to cut, this is a piece of 1 inch round, and I need a piece that is 6 inches long. This is going to be the pin that goes through the top up there for my lifting. So we'll just go ahead and cut that while we're at it. I've got a set of jaws in my saw here that have V notches in it for holding round stock. That's an option, I think, that comes with this saw. Have to buy that separately, but they're well worth it. All right, here we go. 1 inch round stock here. And that should be all the metal we need for this project. So let's start doing what we need to get these ready to weld up. Next, I want to do some just deburring, getting all these sharp edges off this steel. So I'm over at my belt sander. And real quick, these I want to round off a little corner there. All right, get the rest of these done. Over at the milling machine now, and I want to drill some 5/8 inch clearance holes for the bolts to pass through these. This would be what mounts the that big hydraulic ram to the machine. So we got a couple of mounting holes in there. I'm just going to start by drilling about a 3/8 inch pilot hole here, and then we'll go to the bigger drill bit. clean that off. I've got 4 of these that need to be done, so I'm pretty much set up on there. I purposely did this where I can just butt that up against the piece there, and I'm already aligned for my next one. So let's we'll swap these drill bits out and go through these 4 real quick. This is my 5-inch piece, and on it I need to drill a 1-inch hole in the middle. That'll be for that pin to go through. So again, we'll just start by drilling a pilot hole. I'm going to swap out to a 1-inch drill bit. So we're ready to start welding this, and I've got it set up over here. This is a 22-inch long piece. Basically in the center, I'm going to have 2 of these bosses come out with a bolt that'll go through. This is what the bottom of the hydraulic ram will mount onto. It'll go in between these 2 bosses I'm going to weld on. They're 2 inches of 2-inch gap on the inside. Now I've got this set up over here with one of my really cool squares from Fireball Tools. Jason over at Fireball Tools set me up with a couple of these things, and I love these things for welding. They're really great to clamp onto, as you can see, and we can get a nice square weld. So let's go ahead and do this to welding. I'm using my Lincoln Electric Power MIG 210 MP is what we'll be using to weld this with, and this should be pretty straightforward. All right, guys, so to get the other side, make sure I'm square. I've got one of these spacers. These are little magnetic spacers. Again, this is a kit sold by Fireball Tools that has these in different thicknesses, and they have magnets in there. Really, really handy. And because I've got that weld down here, I can't go right in the corner, but I want to make sure we're keeping it square, because just the heat from that will cause that to move around. Let's see. Now I can come in here up on the bottom, clamp that, and that should keep everything square, and we'll weld the inside here. So for my next weld here, I need to put my other bracket on here. It's 2 inches I want in between here. So again, I went over and grabbed some of these little magnetic spacers out of that kit that I got again from Fireball Tools. Awesome setup here. Basically, I'm just putting my bolt through here. I tighten it out. That assures that my pins are lined up so that I know that my bolt will go through and one's not out of alignment with the other. The spacers here assure that I've got a 2-inch gap in between it. I've got one on the top and one on the bottom, so we're squeezing against the side we've already put in on the other side. And anyway, we're ready to weld this, so let's just get her done. Here we go. I'm going to take this bottom spacer out now, and that's just to get me so I can reach in here, and we'll go ahead and weld the inside while we're at it. All right, and I think this bracket is ready to go. Go ahead and pull that out. There we go. So I think we're about ready to weld this on. I've come over here ahead of time. I've just taken a flap disc and cleaned all the paint off the areas that we're going to be welding on this. I've got my new bracket clamped in place, and we'll start by welding the center part in. If you notice, when we welded that, it kind of flexed these pieces out this way, and because of the way this is, it's actually needs to be flexed back the other way. This tube is a little bit smaller than this tube, so we're gonna have to bend those back to weld them on the outside. We'll get to that in a minute. So let's go ahead and at least get that tacked in place. We'll get that clamp out of there and put a good bead in there. I'm just gonna tack it. Okay. Okay. Got a clamp on here. It's not really pulling up snug, so I'm going to put some heat on this. We'll get this red hot, and hopefully that'll bend in a little bit flatter through there. I don't want to introduce any stress in this part. I want it to go down in there and then let it cool down, and it should be where it needs to be. So let's just get that heated up red hot. Now, should be able to bend that in there. And that's fairly flat across that front there, so I think that'll be a lot better. We'll go ahead and weld that in place. Got my piece of 1-inch stock over here at the metal lathe, and I want to turn this into a pin, so I want to put a taper on the end so it'll go in and out easier, face off both ends, and just clean it up a little bit. So we'll start by just facing this end off. And then I'm going to just come in here and we'll start using the compound to create a taper on the end. No special measurements on this. I'm just putting it on there to help it align up in that hole. And we're pretty close to where I want to be. I think I'll take just a little bit more off. And we're going to call it done. Flip the part around. And we'll go ahead and face this back side off again. Get a nice square cut there, or square face. And just a little bit more. And now I want to put a little bit of a chamfer on this end as well. This is just going to be to give us a little place for the weld to go in there. So nothing near as drastic as the other side, but I do want to have a place for the weld to go in. Make sure we get good penetration on the back side of this pin. That should be plenty. And we're back over on the milling machine now. We're going to drill a hole through here. This is just a hole for a pin to hold that in place. Got my pin over here in a vise now, and you see this is the side I'm going to weld, and this is a piece where we drilled the 1-inch hole in. That's where it's going to fit into, and I've countersunk that, so we have a nice area of penetration hopefully down below the surface that we can get welded up. Let me get my mask on here. It's welded in place. Okay. Okay. And we'll go ahead and weld around this side as well. All right, next I got some little side guides here. These are just 2 of them, 1 on each side. This is just kind of brackets the that piece of tubing that this fits over. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm just gonna hold these in place and weld them in. And I want to just test fit this, make sure everything's going to line up right, and that bracket fits over there just fine. So next thing we need to do is weld some pieces come off this side for the hydraulic ram to fit up in on the top, and when we put a pin on this other side, we can lift and lower across that bracket on the top. Before we weld that on there, I'm going to clean these welds up on the grinder. All right, and we're ready to weld our bracket on now, and just like before, I've got it set up with some of these Fireball tool spacers where I got it spaced right, bolt through there to make sure everything's aligned. I'll tack it in place and weld it. All right, we're going to install the hydraulic jack now. So set that up here. We've got a bolt. This is a 5/8 inch bolt that will come up through these holes in the bottom. Now we'll get our pin in here. Jack that up just a little bit to get it to line up. There we go. Now I need to find a pin to put in the back side back here so that doesn't slide out. All right, we got both sides installed now. And I think what I'm going to do is I really need to lower this thing down because I need to move it back into the back end of the shop. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and we'll raise our rams up, put in the highest pin we can reach, and then I'll show you how we're going to lower this thing down. All right, we'll come over here. I'm just going to pull the pin, and we will just take her up. It's going to take me a few minutes to pump this thing up a little bit at a time. So I'm jacking this thing up. One thing I wish that I had was some long reach rams like this, but maybe that weren't 8 tons, really just maybe 1 ton, mainly because it would move a lot faster per stroke. This is kind of slow, but it's going to get the job done. Another option, and I've already had some people asking about this, is why not use air over hydraulics? So basically you can put a air line in there and use your air to pump it up. Or you can use a handle just like I'm doing now. And that would be completely acceptable. Those rams though are a little bit more expensive, and I just opted to go the inexpensive route instead of the expensive route. But that would be completely acceptable to do it. And no more than I'm going to really be doing this. I'm not too worried about having to crank these things up and down manually. But if I was doing it, you know, several times a day, those air-powered hydraulic rams would really make a lot of sense. All right. We're getting on up here close to where it's going to go in. All right, and we are in. Let me go ahead and get my pin put back here behind it. All right, we're gonna do the same thing to the other side. All right, we have our pins located. What I want to do now is I want to pick up on this just enough to take the pressure off where I can pull the pin out. And then we're going to lower this down. Now I'm going to lower it in stages. I don't want to lower this all at one time because it's just going to be too much on one side or the other. I'll probably come down the equivalent of a pin on each side. I don't know that I'll put the pin in each time, but you can see it's kind of leaning towards me. That's why you would never want to do this with a load on there. You get that top out of whack and you got a mess. So anyway, we'll do this on both sides. Just lower it down a piece at a time. Same thing over here. We'll go up to take the pressure off the pin. Pull the pin and come down with this side. All right, we're level. I'm going to go on down one more pinhole. Everything's going to come riding back to me over here. A little too far, but that's fine. All right, we'll bring down the other side some more. We'll just slowly rock it back and forth until we get it down all the way. All right, coming down on this side. And I'm going to put my pin in this time. All right. So now while I'm here, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and raise it up one more pin on this side so that I can bring it down that last little bit. Okay. There we go. Well, there you go. My little hack here for making my gantry crane a little bit easier to deal with, raising and lowering. I think I'm going to like it. It's still a lot of work to move these things around, but I'm going to tell you, compared to having to put jacks up underneath the bottom of this thing or fooling around with come-alongs, I think this is going to be a major improvement. So a couple little things I still need to do to really finish this job up that I'll do off camera. Number one is I'm going to go ahead and repaint these so we don't get any rust on it. I found some paint that's not a 100% match, but it's pretty darn close. I don't think it'll be very noticeable. I'm going to go ahead and repaint it. Second thing is I want to get me a little handle to put on this little T-nut valve here. I've used on some of my other jacks you can go to like Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever. There's a little a faucet handle that has a set screw in it that you can just screw on these, and it gives you something to grip a hold of them, and it really makes dealing with that part of it a lot easier. I took my handling and just cut it off short. I really don't need that long leverage, so this really works good here, and I need to figure out a way, probably maybe put a set screw in this thing so that it won't fall out, and I think that those couple little things will make this even a better setup than what I got now. So anyway, thought I'd share that. Hope you enjoyed it. Well guys, I think that's going to pretty much be a wrap on this video. As always, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You can leave comments if you like, and give me a thumbs up if you like what you saw. And with that, we'll catch you on the next video. Thanks for watching.